You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
PackersTalk.com.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Miles Teteak, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are diehard Packers fans, just love talking about the Pack. We are not getting into all the national sports media nonsense and distractions they waste their time with. We are sticking to real football, talking about the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down games during the season. And of course, now sorting through all the draft dreams and drama of the offseason, which there is plenty of. If y'all want to support that podcast, please spike that like button for us. Most importantly, jump on over to YouTube, type in Packers Talk Network, hit search, hit subscribe, help us out, help us find other Packer fans and help them find us so we can hang out with y'all every Monday night at 9:30 and talk some Packs. Tonight, we got plenty of things to get into. We're in the middle of OTAs here, a little bit of action last week, a little bit of action this week. And there are some trade rumors that are flying hot right now. So we're going to get into that and just take a closer look at this Packers defensive depth chart. Is there room to add another contract, another body to the room? I think we need to talk about this. We need to look at it a little bit. But first, let's take care of some business. The show is, of course, once again sponsored by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans as well as Bucks, Brewers, and all the other tickets you could think of. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. And, of course, remember to support all of those local businesses, Wisconsin and otherwise. Tim, good evening, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Miles. How are you? We got some NFL activity on June 1st today. Kind of felt like a little bit like a second start of free agency.
A little bit.
Couple big trades.
Yeah.
Maybe something brewing with the Packers. Who knows? But there's rumors out there.
There's a little bit of back and forth flying around. You know, a lot of smoke. Usually where there's smoke, there's fire, but definitely a lot of smoke. So just I guess to cover some of the outside of the Packers stuff, you know, you got Myles Garrett getting traded to the Rams today, the big blockbuster there. You know, that certainly wasn't something the Packers were ever involved with. I don't think their blood is that rich, but yes. So the Rams continue to do what they do and just jettison those first round picks out. They don't want to use them. They want to spend them on guys that they know. And fair enough. You've won a Super Bowl with that strategy, and we'll see if they can do it again. But there are certainly some Packers rumors flying around right now, and some are definitely silly. The main one, though, we do have Josh Sweat out there hanging out in Arizona, does not want to be in Arizona anymore. So there are teams calling about him, and the Packers appear to be one of them. Now, there's a lot of stuff flying around. Our friend Easton Butler has been on it on some of these things, including the Myles Garrett trade. He was out there early on that one. And then Matt Schneidman slams in with the cold water and says, nope, not happening. So we don't know what's going on. We're just here to maybe think about it, speculate a little bit. I think really one of the ones that we probably should put out is there is some attachments to this rumor that they are trying to trade for Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think that one is pretty silly.
I didn't even see that. That's not happening either way. Yeah. But the Sweat one, it seems like it's two extremes with the Easton Butler rumor that, hey, they're talking and they're trying to figure out the draft pick that would go back, and they're trying to figure out the contract situation with how much the Cardinals would take on if they're taking on anything additional. Those are two big parts of the trade actually being completed. So it's not like he's saying it's close. Like, you got to figure out the compensation or else you don't have a trade. Right. And then you have the Schneidman part of it that sounds like it's coming. He's not saying it, but it's coming from the Packers. Somebody's leaking it to Schneidman. And his report is basically like they're not interested, and they probably never were interested. So it's like two different extremes, and believe what you want to believe, but I kind of think it's a little bit in the middle. Like it's hard for me to believe that they've not talked at all to the Cardinals about Josh Sweat. Like they've definitely at least checked in to see what the price would be to acquire him and what the contract would look like if there's any kind of adjustments. I don't think there's even going to be adjustments to the contract because it's basically a 1 year deal, and then after that, he's got no guaranteed money. I I would be shocked if they haven't at least called to see what it would take to get him from the Cardinals. Now, like how far down the road it's gotten, who knows? I'll still be surprised if it ends up happening and he gets traded to Green Bay, but I think there was at least interest at some point. Whether that's now, whether that was before the draft, whatever the timing was on it, I definitely think they made that call. It would make too much sense. Like obviously he's got ties to Gannon going back to Philly, and then he signed in Arizona when Gannon was the head coach there. There's that part of it. There's just the fact that the Packers could use another pass rusher, especially with Parsons probably going to miss the first couple games. So it would make sense for the Packers to at least check in, but how far down the road it's gone, I don't know. But they've been tied to Sweat going back to March. So I think there's something at least to the rumor. Whether or not it actually ends up happening, we'll see. But I don't believe Sweat's showing up for workouts there in Arizona, which kind of tells you something's going to happen with him, whether it's the Packers or another team. It seems like he's going to be moving on. So yeah, who knows? This could happen tomorrow, and with our luck, it'll probably happen tomorrow. So we can't talk about it till next week. But maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But I think there's at least something to it. How likely or how intense the talks are between the two teams, who knows? Like, but I think there at least was interest on the Packers' part.
Yeah, it's hard for me to believe that there's not interest on the Packers' part and that they haven't picked up the phone. I mean, they're the ones who say that we're in every conversation, and they never deny interest in being able to add a guy that could help the team. And so that's where I almost wonder if Schneidman is being a little bit of an assist here to the front office and offering up some smoke to whatever negotiations are going on. But yeah, I mean, right now it's all still pure speculation. There's really not much more to go off of than that. I think we're definitely going to jump into some of the depth chart analysis, where I want to take a look at a little bit more of the money situation, the salary cap. But first, let's touch on some OTA updates real quick, because we did have some action last week and a little bit more coming up tomorrow. Some of the stuff that caught my eye. And shout out to Bill Huber. He had some good updates there last week. Cisse getting reps with the ones already. I liked seeing that. It's, you got to take these things with a grain of salt. They're not in pads. There's a lot to still be shaken out and all that. You don't know who's where and who's playing, and what the circumstances led to him being with the ones, but it's not a bad sign. So Cisse playing with the ones at corner already. Franklin, I think this is a little bit of an expected thing. Zaire Franklin wearing the green dot for the defense on his helmet, meaning he's calling the plays in. So he will be kind of that defensive captain, defensive leader type. So I was, good to see that box checked. It's not going to be Cooper. I don't know that would be a bad thing, but certainly it was Quay before. So if Cooper were wearing the green dot, that would be a new thing for him. And then we got switching over to, let me not switch to the other side of the ball just yet. DDS, the Danny Dennis Sutton, was the first rookie to get snaps with the ones. I thought that was notable. Now, granted, edge is a position where you got a lot of rotation happening. So that seems like that could be logical. That would happen for him. And then switching over to the offensive side of the ball, new 8-7 is getting some attention on the offense. Not Romeo Dobbs, but Sturdivant. So that was interesting. He might be the token UDFA that makes the roster this year. We'll see. He's certainly got a lot of competition ahead of him in that receiver room, but nonetheless, seeing a UDFA, getting some attention during OTAs especially at a deep position. I thought that was a good thing. And my guy Burton that I'm rooting for at center, getting a lot of reps, working with the 2s and the 3s. That's a sign that they're definitely trying to get him as many reps as possible, keep him on the field, see what they got. Not rotating with the 1s, but that shouldn't be a surprise with Sean Ryan probably holding that spot down until somebody kicks him out of it. And then a quote from MLF, Matt LaFleur, in his interviews. There's a lot of opportunity out there for him to take, and that is in regards to Matthew Golden. I thought that the wording of that was very interesting. Not sure that there was a lot of opportunity out there for him to take this time last year. Although he did turn some heads in the offseason last year and in training camp and making some plays. But saying that there's a lot of opportunity out there for him to take seems like the door is open for him to get out there, make some plays, and hopefully get a lot more snaps with the offense this season. And then the final one that got my attention when asked about moving on from McManus at this point in the offseason, LaFleur basically said that was in the best interest of both Brandon and the team, which means they think it's in the best interest for Trey Smack to not necessarily have more competition, but just get those snaps and get to focus on his craft. So sometimes the kicker that's in the best interest of the team to have competition. This time it's not. So I just kind of found that interesting. Those are my little notes. I don't know, take those for what you will. Again, shout out to Bill Huber for bringing those updates to us, those little nuggets of information. But Tim, did you have any other stuff that caught your eye from the OTAs last week?
Well, I just think to go back to a couple of your things with the McManus release and the timing of it, it was interesting. I think part of that probably came from McManus or his agent just wanting to get him out there now so that if there's another team that wants him now, or if there's an injury that happens, he can sign and he doesn't have to be waiting for a decision from the Packers. But I also think it's probably the Packers wanting to avoid the kicker competition in training camp and the daily, questions for LaFleur and the daily, focus on who's making what kicks and how much, what the distance is and who's missing and who's doing. I think they want to keep that circus out of here. Now they're still going to call it a competition with him and Haversick. It's not really a competition. It's Smack's job, but I think they want to kind of take at least that pressure away from Smack. Now there's still going to be tons of pressure because he's a rookie and he's got to perform right away. He's going to be the only player at his position. You're not drafting and developing at that position. You have to come in and make your kicks. But at least the competition part of it, it's not going to be the circus all training camp where there's so much daily attention on, who's making the kicks and who's not, and what their numbers are throughout training camp. So I think that was interesting. Some of my takeaways were just number one, everybody, mostly everybody was present and accounted for. Micah Parsons wasn't there, but he's rehabbing, I guess, down in Texas. He might not be down there near you somewhere.
I think he is.
Yeah. So, and that's fine. They said we'll be back soon. I assume that's probably for the mandatory OTAs that he's got to show up for. But he's rehabbing, and as long as he's taking care of himself, and he is, fine. And then obviously Josh Jacobs wasn't there. Be interesting to see if Josh Jacobs is there this week, because he could be there. Or do they tell him to just or do they tell him to just lay low and stay away? That will be a storyline on Tuesday.
Yep.
But other than that, everybody was there. Tons of guys were rehabbing and not practicing, which is, some of it's to be expected, guys coming off injuries and surgeries and stuff like that. And then whatever other injuries were picked up, that's, you don't want to see that. You want to see everybody practicing. But if you have, if you tweak your ankle or something like that, there's no sense in practicing through it at this time. Get yourself healthy and rehab. But yeah, everybody was there. That was, to me, the biggest thing. Other than that, I didn't have a whole lot of takeaways. It didn't seem like a whole lot went on. But the O-line everybody was where we expected them to be, other than obviously Zach Tom's not going to practice until training camp. But Kennard was there at right tackle. They weren't moving guys to, 2 or 3 different positions. It was, here's the starting 5 we expected. They were lined up in their spots. hopefully that continues so there can be some kind of continuity and the younger guys can get their reps at the positions that they're expected to play next season. That was a big one. Bo Melton's back at receiver. I mean, did he ever really leave receiver?
Apparently not.
Apparently not, because he never played a rep of cornerback in the regular season, but he played some receiver for him when he was listed as a cornerback. I mean, he's really a special teams guy, fine, but he was back at receiver, so he's in that competition, I guess, to be, the 5th or 6th receiver. But really, if he makes the team, it's because he can help them on special teams. And then beyond that, it seemed like based on the tweets that were coming out, there was a lot of different movement, and they were along the defense, especially as far as the personnel, like where they were playing guys. Chris McClellan was moving around, Hargrave was moving around, Brinson was moving around, nose tackle end. And then they were just, you brought up Cisse, like, yeah, Cisse got some reps with the first team defense, but so did McClellan. And they also got reps with the, second and third string. So like they were using a lot of different guys in different spots. And I just think that's part of this phase of, the offseason and OTAs is like, you're going to move guys around and just to get them the reps that they need, to get them familiar with the defense and just see what they can do in different spots. So it seemed like there was, particularly on defense, just a lot of movement as far as who was doing what and where, and like first team, second team, that sort of stuff. But, other than that, it didn't seem like a whole lot came out of it. I know a lot of people were making a big deal about Marshawn Lloyd, obviously based on the fact that Josh Jacobs' situation, which is still very much up in the air. But he did at least go through individual drills. But the day that OTAs were open, he didn't go through team. But I did see, I forget who reported this. They said that the previous day he did work and do team drills. It was just on that day they held him back and just had him do individual. Okay, they're easing him back at least a little bit, which makes sense because of the so many injuries he's had the last 2 years. Like,
right.
Take it easy on his body right now. But I'm not going to get too worked up about what Lloyd's doing right now because, as long as he's out there, that's at least a positive because he hasn't been out there in 2 years. So let's hope we keep at least seeing him out there practicing, whether, however many reps he's getting. But I don't ultimately, I don't think a whole lot came out of it. I think it was just more of a who's there and where are they playing at, how, making sure everybody's present for the thing, and then where are they lining up. That's kind of my takeaways from it. But not, I don't think we necessarily learned a whole lot about the team, but it was nice to see them at least practicing and to get that news. And it's still cool to get the tweets about football practice. We haven't had that in a long time, so that was a nice change.
Football is being played. There may not be pads.
Yeah.
But football players are on the football field, so we should talk about it.
Yeah.
No, I agreed. I don't think there's anything to really overreact to from the OTAs so far. And just to be clear, I did say Josh Jacobs was released. I meant from jail, not from the team. We're not breaking any news here, just to be clear. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see if he shows up and what that attention brings. It seems pretty clear the Packers are waiting to do anything to see what goes on with his situation. So I think that tells you at the very least there's a lot that needs to be figured out. You can't just jump straight to conclusions about guilt or anything like that just yet. So yeah, a lot's got to be settled there. I will say, now that we can, start to go back towards the Josh Sweat trade rumors and get a little bit into the depth chart. One of the pieces that I think is very interesting, I saw this in the comments too. You guys are getting after it already. Appreciate you guys. Try to bring some of them up if we can. One of the pieces in Arizona that I think would be interesting to pair with Josh Sweat would be Trey Benson. And I know Tyler Algier is one that people have brought up, as potentially trading for, especially after the Jeremiah Love draft pick. Trey Benson was drafted in 2024. He's got 2 seasons in the league. He's got a 9.78 RAS score whenever he came in. So he's definitely on that athletic chart that Goody seems to love so much. He's similar size to Josh Jacobs as well. He's 6 foot, about 220. And he ran a 4.3940. So it's pretty fast for a dude who's up at around 220. So definitely an interesting piece. I think right now he's probably RB3 on their depth chart, I think.
Or 4. They still have
RB4? Yeah,
well,
because
they
they do have
drafted Jeremiah. So their situation's weird, especially for a team that's rebuilding like they are and
yeah.
doesn't have much talent. But like they had James Conner, and yes, he's on the other side of 30, coming off a year where he missed most of it with an injury. So they went out and they signed Al Jair from the Falcons, and Al Jair was a pretty good running back too with Atlanta. And they paid him a decent amount of money. It looked like, okay, he's going to get his opportunity, running back one. And then they draft Jeremiah Love, number 3 overall? Phenomenal prospect, but like, why would you do that when or why would you pay Al Jair if you really liked Love, and you knew you had the 3rd pick? Like he was going to be there. It's just weird, like allocation of resources, especially for a rebuilding team. So now you still have Connor, who they haven't released, and then you have Benson, who was a 3rd round pick a couple years ago. I mean, he hasn't really played much or produced when he did, but like they're gonna cut 1 or 2 of those guys at some point. Like you're obviously keeping Love, and I can't imagine they're just gonna turn around and get rid of Al Jair after they just signed him in March and paid him. Like I guess he's gonna be a running back 2 again, which stings for him when I'm sure he was signing there thinking he was going to be the guy, but whatever. So you have Love and Al Jair. Like, what are you going to do with Connor and Benson? So I know a lot of people are trying to connect that to the Packers. Connor's old and he's beat up, so I don't think he
Connor
makes sense.
I don't think is on the radar.
And Benson's kind of like he hasn't done anything, and I think he might have had an injury or 2 down there as well. So like, if you're getting Benson, maybe you can wait till they cut him, or like people, if they make the Josh Sweat thing, maybe they throw him in and as to just clear the roster spot, and it's somebody you bring in to just take a look at as like a depth piece. But that's a weird situation. Like they're definitely moving on from 1 or 2 of those guys. So
he would be a very interesting piece to bring in. As far as your upside, he's not even 24 years old yet. And he hasn't done a whole lot with what he had, but he hasn't done nothing. I'm looking at his stats here from 2025. He only got 29 carries, but he got 160 yards on 29 carries, which is 5.5 yards a carry. And he has 10 forced missed tackles. I mean, that's not nothing, right? In a very small sample, the guy has shown some potential. Like I said, he's got a fast 40 as well. If that's a guy that you can pair in a trade just to prevent him from getting picked up by somebody else, or to get, prevent him from getting targeted by somebody else if he does get cut, he definitely fits that mold as far as like what the Packers look for. He's young. Can you say his best football is ahead of him? I think that's pretty fair, unless I don't think he had like a catastrophic injury. Might have dealt with some injuries, but he's one that definitely would be very, very interesting. If you are going to make a trade for Josh Sweat, getting him paired in there, and maybe adding a little bit extra compensation for it. I can't imagine it's a lot for, RB3, RB4 type guy. Just a very interesting one to keep an eye on. Even if Josh Jacobs is cleared, you got questions about Marshawn Lloyd. He's just not a bad guy to have in, as far as what I can tell. We don't know what's going on between the ears, what the character's like. I don't know anything about that. Those things certainly matter to the Packers when they're looking at who to bring in. So, definitely something to keep an eye on. He would be an interesting piece from an athletic perspective and from what he's done so far. So, let's get a little further into this now. We want to take a look at the defensive depth chart. And we'll kick it off with the edge position because we're talking about Josh Sweat. Is there room for another guy? And how much do you have to pay this guy? And what is the cap situation like? So I just wanted to jump in there. We have a lot of dead money this year on the cap, which sounds bad, but you still have cap room. And you only have to pay Josh Sweat. If you do trade for him, I believe it's around $10 million this year. Something, it might even be a hair under.
Yeah. I think it's 10-ish, something like that. And that's because the Cardinals, he had like a roster bonus or something like that due early in the offseason. They've already paid that.
Right.
So like you're getting him pretty cheap. Plus, his contract after this year has no more guaranteed years. So, like,
Right.
it's essentially a 1-year deal. And then, like, yeah, he's got higher cap hits in the future years, 27, 28. But, like, you can move on from him after this year,
Or you can
or you could
restructure. Yeah.
restructure, whatever. It's essentially a 1-year deal for him. So I don't think the cap situation for the Packers will be a problem at all. And I know they want to get extensions done for Kraft and Watson and maybe Wyatt. This will still allow you to do that. Like, I don't think this in any way would stop them from being able to do
Right.
extensions now, like this offseason with those guys. So from a cap standpoint, I think it's pretty easy for the Packers to do and absorb.
Yeah. Even without shipping off LVN, I know that's something that some folks
They
have
don't
proposed. So
I
you
don't
wouldn't
think
have
it's
to do that.
I don't think it's gonna even take that. Like,
No,
maybe a 3rd round pick, but it wouldn't surprise me if he gets moved for, like, maybe a 5th,
I've
or, like,
seen that.
maybe a 5th and, like, a future 6th, or a 5th and a future pick swap or something like that, because yeah, I don't think it's gonna be this huge price. I know some people are throwing around Van Ness and a 3rd round pick, like,
I don't think
you
that's
know,
the price.
I don't think so either, and if it is, I don't think the Packers do it. Like, they just picked up Van Ness's 5th-year option for a reason. Like, I think they're bringing in Sweat to add somebody, and if they're gonna include a player, it's kinda like, "All right, we got too many guys. We'll throw in Brenton Cox, say, or, Colin Oliver. Like, go ahead, you can take one of these guys just because we're gonna have so many now anyway." But I think it's probably picks or a pick to get
Yeah, I
him.
agree with that. And this is this is where I think I wouldn't put it past them. Like if you can afford it, based on what you've experienced the last couple of years, injuries happen, man. You can't assume that you're going to have that full lineup all the way throughout the season. And our friend Chris the Casual comes in here. He says, with Sweat, that would be quite the hockey line rotation. You're
Yeah,
right, man.
give me
You
that.
yeah, that's exactly right. Hey,
Yeah.
please, let's have it. Like give me Parsons on one side, Sweat on the other, and then when those guys need a breather, you got LVN, you got Sorrell. I mean, the
Look,
depth is nice.
right. I mean, look at the Seahawks had pass rushers. They had depth at
Yeah,
pass rusher. The Eagles just won a Super Bowl 2 years ago with a hockey line rotation of pass rushers. Gannon was there when they went to the Super Bowl and lost, but they had a hockey line of pass rushers. Like, you need pass rushers. It's the
yeah,
most important thing for a defense is to rush the passer and get to the passer. And yeah, they have one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, and Micah Parsons. Awesome. But like, you need more than that. And I've said it a million times since we've been doing this podcast. Like, I'll never turn down another pass rusher. Like, just when you think you need, you're just when you think you have enough, you need
go
another
get
one.
more.
Go get more. Like, don't ever say no to a pass rusher. And I get, like, they have Van Ness, and you need to get Van Ness healthy and see what he can finally be. And Oliver and Sorrell are kind of unknowns, and they just drafted Dennis Sutton. Like, you want to develop those guys and get them reps. Like, and I agree with that, and that makes sense. But like, you can still develop those the guys and find out what they are, and add Josh Sweat when you have Micah Parsons. Like, if you can add in a player like that, and it's not going to cost you that much in compensation, like, go and do it. Like, don't get shorthanded at the most important position on defense. Like, eh, so to answer your question, can they fit Josh Sweat? Like, can they find space for him on the depth chart? Yeah, hell yeah. Like, I Colin Oliver is not going to stop me from getting Josh Sweat. Like, there's just no offense, and maybe he turns out to be something, but like,
He
it's
might.
just not. Yeah, he might, but it's just not going to stop me. And like, Parsons, let's assume he's out the first few games of the season. Sweat with Van Ness and Sorrell, and then whatever you can maybe get from Dennis Sutton as a rookie, or Oliver, that looks pretty nice. Rather than Van Ness being your number one edge rusher while Parsons is out. Like, and then when Parsons is back, and you can go Sweat with Parsons and Van Ness and Dennis Sutton and Sorrell, like, that's pretty damn good. Like, we're not too far from, like, Aaron Mosby, who's a nice special teams player, but him having to rush the passer, and Brenton
Right.
Cox having to play a big role, and Preston Smith, who was at the end of the line, having to play, and like, there's a whole bunch of guys I'm forgetting. And they won a Super Bowl with Frank Zombo, but I mean, you don't want that. So like, yeah, go get a pass rusher. They can fit them in. Is it, they have other needs on the team. I get that point too, because people will bring that up like, well, they could use an offensive lineman. Yeah, they could. Or they could use a running back or a corner. Like, I get there's other needs, but like, this is a pass rusher and a good pass rusher. Like, go and do it if you can.
Yeah, I agree. 12 sacks last year. He's no Micah Parsons, right? So we can't put him in that category, but he's certainly, if he's your second best pass rusher, that's a hell of a place to be. And that's where, yeah, I agree with you. I think there absolutely is room for it, and this isn't a guy, unless he comes in and just blows it out of the park. This is not a guy that you're going to project to be on this roster for the next 5 years. He might be on the roster for this year. If he does well, maybe he finds himself, with a contract extension for a year or two. But you've already got the future there. I think they believe the future of pass rusher certainly includes Sorrell, Dennis Sutton, maybe Oliver if he can really turn it in, and Van Ness. But yeah, adding him at the top is huge. And I think that that's one of those moves similar to, kind of what you're saying, like about, Super Bowl bound teams or teams with the window open. You add that guy to get yourself over the top. You can't be sitting there at one of the most important positions saying this is good enough and go, no. Good enough's not good enough. Right. Like you almost need overkill because injuries are going to happen. That there's going to be unpredictable circumstances. So, yeah, to, I guess, go back to the beginning of this conversation. I don't think I believe Schneidman that, Goot's not having those conversations. That's hard for me to believe. And him saying that almost seems like kind of a dog whistle of, hey, I'm saying this, but I'm kind of winking at you like, you guys have heard him say he's in all these conversations. So, what I'm saying is not necessarily true. And, I like Schneidman. I think he's done a really good job of covering things.
Yeah.
He also had cold water for the Micah Parsons trade. So just to keep that in mind, I think that there might be a little bit of, intentional, hey, man, not true. We need you to report this instead. And that could be coming directly out of 1265 for a reason.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I mean, he's not getting that information from anybody in Arizona, right? Like,
right.
his connections are in Green Bay, and he may be absolutely right, and I'm sure he's reporting what he's being told, right? And that's his job as a reporter. Like, he's a good reporter, not questioning that, but I definitely think Goody's made that call, and probably more than one, to see what it's going to take to get Josh Sweat and if he's really available, which it definitely seems like he's really available. So,
absolutely.
yeah, I think he's, as Goody said, he's in every conversation, right? He was going to be in every conversation. I think they've been in this. And this isn't like a rumor. I know it just started up again today, but I mean, this goes back to March, like where there was a rumor of the Packers' interest in Sweat and Sweat's interest in playing for Gannon again in Green Bay. So like, it's not a new thing. And there's been multiple reports out there that there's interest there. So yeah, you can't convince me that they haven't at least checked in and had some sort of a discussion about price and cost for acquisition.
Yeah. And I think the latest report from Easton Butler was that the negotiations are at how high is the draft pick for him. I saw reports of the 5th that you might have seen as well. You threw out there, maybe go up to a 3rd. We got our friend, our Showers out here, says, hey, Sweat for a 5th, I would do, not for a 3rd. I don't know if I agree with that. I think I'm giving him a 3rd, especially because, we haven't had a great track record with our 3rd round picks, but you also are going to have a lot of picks, or at least more than usual in this, this next draft in that range, 4th and 3rd, 4th, 5th. So if you're telling me you got to give up one of those to go get a pass rusher who can make a difference, I'm taking it. Anything above a 3rd, I think, we got to pump the brakes on that. But yeah, you don't have a whole lot of needs elsewhere either. And we got multi havoc 8783. Is Sweat not worth a third? Yeah, I think he is worth a third. If you come out, we hear a report that the Packers traded a third for Sweat. I'm not mad about that. I don't know exactly where this will fall or how that gets determined. We kind of went back and forth with the with the Micah Parsons stuff as well. And there's, folks out there still debating who got the better of that trade. And, why wasn't Micah worth more? Micah came with a high price tag on the salary cap too. So you don't know who's also trying to compete for Sweat, what their trade compensation is and what their desire to pay for his salary is. And you also don't know, the Arizona Cardinals might be trying to do right by him. Teams do that. They might be going to him saying, "Are you okay with us trading you to this team instead of that team?" And if his answer is no, then it's not going to necessarily stop them, but it might affect negotiations somehow. It's like, look, we're trying to do right by this guy. He wasn't in control of the situation as far as where he wants to be and the coach he wants to play for. And Zaire Franklin kind of alluded to that in an interview that he did about, the Colts coming to him and asking him who he would like to be traded to and play for. So they do that. That's not unheard of either. He's been clear he wants to go play for Gannon, right? So it seems clear that Sweat, if he had his option, would be a Packer. So yeah, I do wonder, but that range to me, 3rd to 5th round, I'm fine with that. Again, higher than that, I don't know if I'm good with that. I think those are investment picks. Even a 3rd rounder, it kind of, if you're going to have multiple 3rd rounders this next season, yeah, that's fine. If you're going to have one, I don't know, but either way, I trust the front office on it.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I don't know if Goody would do a 3rd, and that may be like one of the sticking points. I don't know if he does that. For me, like, I would be fine if it's a day 3 pick your round. I'm cool with that. 3rd, yeah, but like they have their own 3rd next year, and then the Malik Willis comp pick will be at least a 4, and depending on how much and how well he plays, like if he stays the starter, it's going to be a 3rd round pick. So then you got multiple 3s. Do you want to throw one at Josh Sweat? And it may only be 1 year of Josh Sweat. That's the other thing. Like, okay, if you get a great year out of him, that's cool. Maybe you do something with the contract and you keep him longer, but it might only be 1 year, and you're giving up a 3rd round pick for that. That might be too much for them, and I think it probably would be. But a day 3 pick, yeah, I would do that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if they do give up a 3rd for him, there's probably the idea that he's there for more than a year. I don't see that being the thought that we're going to get this guy for a year. Let's give up a 3rd round pick. I think then and again, we don't know the personality, the other sort of behind the scene factors that come into play. But yeah, I would expect that if they're giving up a 3rd for him, they expect him to be around probably for the next 3 to 4 years. Is similar to what you would expect from a 3rd round pick, right? You use a 3rd round pick on a player, you expect them to be there for 4 years, probably, maybe 3, depending on if they're good or not. Sometimes a 3rd rounder doesn't pan out, and the Packers have not been great in the 3rd round, short of Tucker Kraft. But yeah, I mean, there's still a valuable pick, so that may be where it's hung up on, but I would expect that that's where they're at, and there hasn't been. I'm trying to keep the feed updated, because we might get some breaking news. Of course, that's how it goes, guys. Is what'll happen here is that the trade will go through tomorrow morning about 6:30, and we won't get to have our say about it for a full week after. But so keep your alarm clock sharp tomorrow morning if you want to get that breaking news for this trade. Hopefully, it'd be really cool if it happened while we were live, but probably not. We haven't had many of those come through for us. So anyway, as far as depth goes, the edge, as it stands, I'm okay with it. I would certainly love to see them go get a guy like Sweat, add another real serious player to that rotation. And Sweat has been, a very durable guy as well. I think I saw that he's only missed like 2 games in the last 5 seasons, something like that. So, when injuries have been an issue for the team, that would be a great piece to add. But as it stands, I'm not mad about the depth at edge, especially when you do expect development from guys like Sorrell and Oliver. assuming they are healthy throughout the entire offseason, you definitely expect to see them take a jump from year one to year two. And if that does happen, you've got Parsons, you've got LVN, you got those guys. Dennis Sutton, you certainly expect to contribute as well. That's not the worst situation to be in. And I still like Brenton Cox. I think that he's a pretty good player. He didn't stay healthy last season, but I don't think he's a nobody. I think he can contribute and hold his own in a game. So, I'm not upset about it. I don't think that's the weakest link on the team, to put it that way. But yeah, you definitely want to see them add somebody else, and then you feel like this is a real contender type group. But let's jump on to the next one. I particularly interested in this position, the cornerback position, and the competition there. Lots of unknowns this season. We certainly know what Nixon is. We certainly know what Valentine is. I talk about projecting development in the offseason. I don't think you're going to see either of those guys change who they are or all of a sudden become better athletes. They're both pretty good athletes, and both have had flashes of playing well, but I think they are the player they're going to be. What you don't know necessarily is St. Just, right? What version of him are you going to get? Obviously, Cisse is a big question mark, although high potential, right? You got him with the 52nd overall pick for a reason. I'm very excited to see what he brings as far as the competition goes, because I'm a firm believer that competition breeds excellence. It forces guys to play better and step up. So I'm interested to see how that goes, him entering that room. Does he force Nixon to be a little bit sharper? Does he force Valentine to be a little bit sharper? The other. And then you've got some other guys in the room that I think are interesting. I don't know that anybody's going to necessarily push for one of those top three jobs after that. I do think the addition of, I don't know if you saw this, Marlon Jones, corner out of Vanderbilt, overcame cancer. Seems like probably a hell of a human being. The addition of him, I think, tells you we're not going to bring in Trayvon Diggs, right? I think that's sort of like, look, we had room for an extra body to come in. We're going to go with this guy. I don't see there being room in there for a Trayvon Diggs at this point. There's a lot of bodies in that room. At the top of the list, you've got four guys who are competing for really two spots, because your nickelback is going to be Bullard. So your top two corners are the ones that are really trying to fight it out. CB3 is really probably more like CB4, and CB4 is a special teamer, essentially. So I don't know that the guys like Shamar Bartholomew, Marlon Jones, even Damani Jackson, I don't know that they have much opportunity to crack that lineup. They can definitely make an impression on special teams, hang around until there is an opportunity. Obviously, injuries always happen, so you want those guys to be sharp and ready to step in if they need to. Hopefully, we don't end up in a 2016 situation where you've got Ladarius Gunter going against Julio Jones in his prime in the playoffs. we don't want that. But yeah, I think that you have a lot of good competition in the cornerback room. And I think CB1 and CB2 will be good. I think whoever ends up as CB1, CB2 will be good. I don't know that I'll sit here and say it's the best cornerback room in the league or anything like that, right? But I think they will be serviceable, especially considering the safeties that are playing behind them. Javon Bullard playing in the nickel. You need those guys to hold their own on the outside. And I think you have a lot of guys in that room who can do that. How do you feel about the cornerback room?
Well, I think between what they did in the draft and what they did in free agency bringing in St. Just, I think it's improved the room. I think they're better than they were this time a year ago or throughout the season. I just don't think they're good enough still yet. Ultimately, this is not what you want your cornerback room to look like. But it is That's better. So Cisse is going to be really interesting to watch. How soon is he ready to go? And we might not get a lot from him as a rookie, or maybe it's later on in the season, or maybe he's ready to, play snaps week 1. We don't know that yet, and it's probably more likely he's not going to be ready to play snaps week 1, but it's not like he's got huge competition ahead of him to beat out either. And then St. Juste had a strong season for the Chargers last year, but it wasn't as a full-time starter. I think he played under 400 snaps. So played well when he was there, but he was kind of a fill-in guy and a good special teams player. So can he be more than that? But he does provide you better depth than what they had last year. So at least there's that part of it. I think there's real competition for Valentine. I don't think there's real competition. I think they like Nixon a whole lot than the public likes Nixon. But
yeah, no kidding.
He's going to be a starter. We just got to deal with it. He's going to be. I think it's the other spot. I think it's Valentine's spot that's much more up in the air. And you and I think, always liked Valentine and were believers in him and wanted him to get more playing time. Yeah. And it took a while, and then he did. And, at times he was good in coverage, and at other times it seemed like he would get lost. And then his tackling is just – it's horrendous. He was horrible as a tackler, to the point where, that Ravens game late in the season, they were benching him first for Nate Hobbs, who got hurt. Then Kamal Hadden was going to get his shot, and then he got hurt, and then they had to go back to Valentine. And it would have been interesting, if Hadden wouldn't have gotten hurt in that game, would he have started taking over as a starter after that? Would he have started getting snaps? But we'll never know, because he got hurt, Hobbs got hurt. So it was we got to play Valentine. But, he was terrible as a tackler. And then I think as the year went on, his coverage ability wasn't as good either. But maybe he can bounce back. New defense, new coaches at his position. Who knows? And he's on his rookie contract, so it's a cheaper contract, a young player to develop that you hope to get better from. Maybe he will. Maybe he'll bounce back. But I'll be interested, number one, in Cisse, and I want to see what St. Juste can do. Damani Jackson's just an interesting, throwing a dart, late round pick on athletic ability and pedigree. Don't know what he's ultimately going to be, but I think at least their depth is better. If Hadden can come back, he's coming off this serious ankle injury. There were some positive signs from him last year, so maybe he can be a depth piece for him too. But yeah, I feel better about the cornerback room than I did last season, but it's still not good enough. I don't think you need, 2 all-pro cornerbacks to be a successful defense and win a Super Bowl, but you need a couple guys that are at least good, real good, solid corners, or maybe a guy who's all pro, Pro Bowl type of level or close to it, and then another solid guy that you can count on from there. And they don't have any of that right now. So, it's going to be, can the scheme help them? Can the new coaches help them? And then what do they get out of St. Juste? What do they get out of Cisse for that room? But it's better than it was, but it's still a major concern.
Yeah. And I see some varying opinions there in the chat. And our friend R. Showers, Nixon is not as good as Valentine.
I'm not saying he is, but
I think that's fair to debate. But at the same time, it just depends on what the coaches value, because you look at it, Nixon had 13 PBUs, pass breakups, last season. I think Valentine had 1 or something like that. Let me go check out what he had. And the missed tackles are a big problem. Valentine had I went right back to Nixon. Valentine had, I think, 10 missed tackles last season, and that's just not gonna work, man. That's bad, and that's never gonna fly. And he only had 4 PBUs. So it's, Valentine's 4 PBUs versus Nixon's 13. 10 missed tackles versus, I think Nixon had less than that. So it depends on what you value. Yeah, I see the point in that Nixon is more reckless as far as he definitely gambles a lot. He tries to bait the quarterback, and I don't know that I would say he's actually good at that. He had 4 missed tackles.
No, Nixon, and he gets beat way too much, and he thinks he's way better than he is.
Yeah,
and then I think, And then the play against the Bears in the playoff game where he turned down a tackle with the guy going into the end zone. Like
yeah, I don't like that.
There's
Don't
no
like
excuse for that. So, like, to go back to ours point, I don't think either one of us are saying that Nixon's better than Valentine. It's just that they've trusted him more.
They
Now, maybe
value him more. Yeah.
maybe that changes with a new coaching staff on defense, position coach and coordinator. Maybe that starts to change. But I mean, like, he's gonna be a starter, whether we like it or not. I'm not a Nixon fan, but I'm just telling you, the Packers like him a lot more than we do. So he's going to be a guy. And, I hope Valentine bounces back, but he's really coming off a rough season, especially the second half of the season. So I think he's the more likely one to lose his job as far as, a starting role goes. But if I had to bet, I think they're both starting week 1 with Bullard as the nickel.
Yeah, I think Cisse will have something to say about that. He definitely seems like a competitor. He seems like a sharp guy. He's already getting rotations with the one, so they're at least giving him the opportunity to compete for that role and for those snaps on the field. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out, especially with the new DB coaches, right? So what do the new coaches value versus what the coaches last year valued? It's going to be an interesting battle. But to your point, I'm not happy. I guess I'm okay with the position. I'm not happy about where it is. You definitely want more out of your corners, but again, I think that where they're at, they're okay with the group because of the other pieces around them. So, let's jump on to that next position group in the safeties. Safety group might be the deepest in the league. I haven't overanalyzed all of the other safety rooms across the league, but they're definitely in the conversation. With McKinney and Williams leading the way back there, that's got to be one of the best safety duos in the league. And Bullard coming in as your nickel, he's probably still technically a safety. I'm not sure exactly how they have him listed. PFF has him listed as a safety, but that group of 3,
he's a nickel.
Yeah, he's a nickel corner. But he's got the ability to go up and play safety. I don't think Bullard will be playing on the outside. I think
no.
I don't think that's where he'll end up.
He's a nickel, and if something happens at safety to one of the starters, he would probably be the next guy back there. Maybe because who's the next nickel then if you move Bullard?
Well, you got Oladapo. Oladapo, when he's gotten snaps, hasn't been terrible. He has definitely been a serviceable guy.
Yeah.
And hasn't gotten a ton of opportunities, to be fair, which is a good thing because it means that the other two have been consistent and healthy. But the other guys you have too, I mean, you got Jonathan Baldwin, who's not been bad in the snaps that he's played. We'll see. I think those guys will definitely determine where they end up based on how they contribute to special teams. But Oladapo he's a serviceable guy back there for safety number 4. He's probably one of the best safety number 4s in the league. But there's just not a whole lot to debate about this room. And I think that really that's where the confidence in the cornerback room comes from, is the safety blanket over the top, pun intended, is a good one, right? You've got smart guys back there making your corners, they're making them not look as bad. They can cover up for mistakes and fill gaps where they need to. But you're keeping teams from going over the top on you really well with those guys. So I love the safety room. I don't think there's anything more you could ask for from the safety room except just please stay healthy. For the love of God, please stay healthy.
Well, I think that's the thing. I mean, the 2 starters are really good. Like there's no really debate. Like McKinney, yeah, he didn't have as many interceptions in 2025, but I still think he had a really good year. He's got to catch some. Like he dropped a few. The one in Denver, obviously, he's huge. Got to catch him. And Evan Williams continues to get better, so he's a stud. And then Bullard's a nickel, but if he had to play safety, it would be fine. Like if he had to, I'm okay with that. Oladapo's an unknown. When he's gotten his opportunities, he's been okay, but like Zane Anderson was ahead of him. So, like, when they needed another safety, it was Zane Anderson ahead of Oladapo. And then we lose Zane Anderson.
You don't have Bisaccia anymore back there batting for Zane Anderson.
Well, yeah, but that's Hafley putting him in on defense, right? Like, there were times where one of the safeties was out. It was Zane Anderson coming up to play safety, not Oladapo. So I want to see what they have in Oladapo, and then after that, there's not much depth there. So it'll be interesting to see if an undrafted guy or a Jonathan Baldwin or whoever it may be can grab it, if they decide to keep another safety there on the roster. Obviously, they're going to have to be good at special teams, since you're a depth player to make the team. But can they find another guy, another depth player? But as far as the starters go, McKinney and Evan Williams, damn good. And it's, I know McKinney got a free agent contract, but he's still young. And next off season, they might be giving him another contract. He's young enough. He's not at that, window where the Packers don't like to play 30 and over. Like, he'll still be young enough where they could give him his third NFL contract, second with the Packers. And then Evan Williams is doing everything you need to see from him to, make him a valuable member of the core of the team. So, yeah, the two starters at safety are very good.
Very good. So, yeah, there's not a whole lot to debate about the safety group here and what's going on there. You're begging them to stay healthy and keep doing what they're doing. I think that they're going to have a heck of a season, and Gannon's going to know exactly what to do with his safeties. And then the next group we got is the linebacker room. So you've got obviously Zaire Franklin that they traded for, and then next to Edgerrin Cooper. Beyond that, you still have McDuffie in there. You still have unknown Tyron Hopper. What's going on with that guy? He's actually listed as an edge on PFF. I'm not sure what their
He's not.
Yeah, I don't know what their source is on that. So
their sources, they don't know.
Fair enough. But yeah, so you got Hopper there, you got McDuffie, you got Nick Nyman, who's a good special teamer, Christian Welch. You got a really deep linebacker room. So here I'm interested to see how do Zaire Franklin and Edge Cooper, how do they fit within Gannon's scheme? We saw what happened last year. Edge Cooper, we really thought was poised for an all-pro breakout type season, and then didn't have a bad season, but didn't have that kind of breakout season that you were really hoping for. I think the biggest value that you got with Franklin is his leadership. He didn't have his best season last season, but I'm not saying his best football is behind him. I don't think that's the case at all. I just think that you've got your playmaker in Cooper there. You need Franklin there to make him look smart. You need him there to get him in the best position possible and put him where he's got to be. And I think that combination is going to be really, really good. I'm very, very excited about that. And then the depth that you have behind him. We've seen McDuffie get thrown in there. He's a great backstop. If somebody gets injured, you get McDuffie in there, he's not a liability. And I think that's an awesome quality to have out of LB3. And then Nyman and Welch will be interesting. I'm sure they'll be strong special teams contributors. But, yeah, I really like the linebacker room. I don't think there's anything to dislike from this room.
Yeah, and, I mean, what's going to be interesting is Franklin's coming off a down year, but before that he was good. And they had a scheme change with the Colts last year, so that could have been the reason why he had a down year. But, like, can he bounce back in another different scheme for him? Like, that's the unknown. And he needs to. Like, they need him to be good and to just be, like, consistent, because we didn't always get the consistency from
Quay Walker.
From Quay Walker, thanks.
Yeah.
It was just lacking. And you just need him to be a good fit with Cooper, and maybe that he can be that linebacker that knows where to go, can be consistent, is in the right spot, and then that can unleash Cooper to just go and find the ball and make plays, because I still thought he played pretty well last year. He just didn't have any of the splash, or not as many of the splash plays as he did as a rookie. And that's what, that's what was lacking from him and from the linebacker position, was just not having those splash plays. And if they can unlock that, you're looking at a potential all-pro linebacker in Cooper with his abilities. I mean, the dude's got tons of potential and all the, athletic ability you could ask for. So, yeah, how does he fit next to Zaire Franklin? And then the other thing that I don't think we were even touched on when we were talking about OTAs is that or maybe you brought it up, Franklin's going to wear the green dot, which means he's going to be the play caller. which is fine. I think everybody expected that, but it's interesting because under Hafley, Packers last season played like a handful of snaps and dime, whereas the Cardinals, not that they played a ton of dime, but I think they were one of the teams that played dime defense the most in the NFL, but it was still not a huge number. If the Packers are going to play dime, that means Cooper's coming off the field because you got one linebacker, and that's got to be Franklin if he's got the green dot. So, like, how many snaps a dime are they really going to play? And maybe they don't because they don't want to take Cooper off the field. But that would be one thing I'd be looking at is like I want Cooper out there every snap. So if that means we don't play dime or if maybe we play, one or two snaps a game, fine. But I want Cooper out there all the time. But that'll be something that we'll see. And I think obviously Gannon's defense with the Cardinals and what it's going to be in the Packers is going to be a little bit different. So they can definitely scale back the amount of dime looks that they played last season. But yeah, I'll be really interested because I feel like Cooper's kind of forgotten about on this team a little bit as far as fans go because there's so many guys to talk about, but like he had that great rookie year where he came in and was making all these big plays and like he was the new sensation. And last year he had a quieter year, not a bad year, just quieter. Like,
Yeah.
but he's kind of like that. Man, if they can unlock him and he gets back to flying around and making plays behind the line of scrimmage again, forcing turnovers, like they got something there, and that could be a big difference maker on their defense.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't know how much dime you're going to see because I think that comes back to what Gannon was talking about as far as we're going to do what our players are good at. We're not going to do what they're not good at. So yeah, I think your best defense, regardless of what the offense presents you with, is that you have both Franklin and Cooper on the field. So you've got to figure out how to compensate for that. But Cooper can cover, man. He's an athlete. So
Yeah.
I don't know that an offense is going to send something at you where it's like that he becomes a liability in coverage for being on the field. You just got to call the right coverage, So don't maybe put him man to man on Justin Jefferson. Let's just not do that. I think as long as we avoid that, we're probably all right.
Makes
But
sense.
yeah, I think that's probably the best way to look at it. And again, taking Gannon for what he said at his word, whether that comes to fruition or not, we'll find out. I wouldn't expect any dime at all, to be honest with you. I just don't think that that's their best play to do with the guys that they have. And that comes back to the cornerbacks too. Like you just don't have guys where you're like, man, we got to get him on the field and let him make plays in that room. The top two corners, maybe top three corners are the ones that you will feel comfortable having on the field because you've got Bullard there still in that nickel spot, plus your safeties. So yeah, I just don't see a situation where that's your best approach. But I also, again, like I said, to reiterate, I think Franklin, his presence is only going to amplify the effectiveness of Cooper. He's going to have him in the right positions. He's going to be able to make the plays so that all Cooper has to do is react. He doesn't have to think. He doesn't have to wonder, am I doing this or am I in the right spot? It's, I got Franklin next to me. He told me, here's what we're doing. Here's where I'm at. I'm doing that and let's go. Hair on fire. I don't have to think. I can just respond. That's got to give you the best version of Cooper you can get, which I am very, very excited to see. And then, so the final position we have here, and this is also one I would probably categorize similar to the cornerback room, our D-line. I think D-line is hit or miss. I think it could be a big hit, especially because you've got some guys taking that year 1 to year 2 step up. You've got, Hargrave in there. You've got Wyatt in there. If they stay healthy, McClellan is a draft pick. They stay healthy, and your year 1 guys last year coming into year 2 actually do take a developmental step forward. This could be a solid group here because you're not asking the world of them. What they've got to do is anchor that middle and be good run stoppers, and let the pass rush do what the pass rush is going to do, whether that's Cooper and Franklin or your edge guys, whoever it is, whoever's the assignment to get after the quarterback, you guys make way and lock up the big boys and take up as many bodies as you can and let those guys get in there. If they can do that and stay healthy, this group could be a very good group. And not unlike the group that you had in your Super Bowl season, right? Like you had some good guys in that line, but you didn't have a bunch of all pros on the D line that year. The talent was in your rushers, Clay Matthews and in your DBs. But I do think it could also be a big miss. If you don't get Stackhouse and Brinson taking a step forward, if you have injuries again, if Hargrave's best football is behind him, this could be a really tough year for that D line, and you could have a lot of problems behind them as a result of that.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think they still need a nose tackle. Like this, it looks like, at least at this point, they're counting on Hargrave or Wyatt or Brinson or Stackhouse or John, like McClellan. Like they're going to do this almost nose tackle by committee approach without having a guy that you can just plug in there and be able to eat up against the run. And I don't know if that's going to work. I mean, Hargrave and Wyatt, their best asset is penetrating, going after the pass rusher. Like that's what you want those guys doing. Brinson, I think, will be interesting in the second year because I think there were some flashes there with Brinson. He's got good size. He's not going to be a true nose, but maybe he can give you some of those snaps. Maybe he can be one of those, move around guys that plays different positions for you. Obviously, Carl Brooks isn't going to give you snaps at the nose, but like they have some guys there. It's just going to be obviously relying on Ken Wyatt stay healthy and productive all year because we haven't seen him be healthy and productive for a full season. We've seen it in, half a season here, half a season there, but then he gets hurt. Like we need to see a full season of Devontae Wyatt. And then Hargrave, like I know everybody's, the Minnesota defense didn't fit him, and that's the reason everybody's saying, including himself, for why he had a down year last year. But like he is also older now. Like, can he come back in a Gannon scheme and be a fit and still have a lot of pass rush left in the tank? It's at his age, you don't know. And then McClellan, he's a rookie. He's a third-round rookie on D-line. Like, I don't have high expectations for him producing this year, and that's not saying he's not going to be a good player at some point. It's just that's a hard position as a rookie to jump right into and have an impact. So we might see flashes from him, but like I don't think we're going to see him consistently out there every week as one of the main guys. Maybe we will, and that would be great. But yeah, I think if you could get a nose, then it kind of like, all right, he's your guy against the run. It kind of makes everybody's position fit and everybody's role fit a little bit more. It's great if, guys can be versatile and that's cool. But like, I don't know, like on a week to week basis, I think teams are going to try to run on them and test them. And I don't know if they have the big bodies up front, the big run stuffers up front to consistently stop the run against the better teams. So that's still a concern of mine, but I think you can find that guy. There's probably going to be a nose tackle available that's going to get released at some point during camp and certainly at cut down time. Maybe there's a trade to be made there at some point too. That would be my concern. And then it's just the health of Wyatt and the age factor with Hargrave. But if Wyatt can stay healthy and Hargrave can look like, previous years of Hargrave, then I think they got the potential to have a nice pass rush up front when you include, when they figure into the mix with Parsons and the other edge rushers. But I think to your point, yeah, there's a lot of potential for hit or miss here. And it could be a position defensive tackle that holds his team back, holds the defense back.
Yeah, I wonder, because we speak a lot from the outside looking in, and I do wonder how much these guys are looking at guys like Jordan Riley and Jonathan Ford, who are both pretty big dudes. Ford listed at 6'5", 338, Riley 6'5", 325. Those are big bodies, and I wonder how much they're hoping that those guys can come and take a step forward.
Well, Riley's not going to play for him till late in the year if he plays at all. He got hurt in that Ravens game. He tore his Achilles. So like,
oh, that was an Achilles. Okay, I didn't
realize he's not a factor. I mean, Ford, Nazir Stackhouse, like they're big bodies, but Ford has been here and gone and come back. Like,
he hasn't done a whole lot.
Yeah, and I mean Stackhouse, I know he's going into his second year, so it's definitely possible he improves and gets better. But he was not good when he played. I mean, to the fact that they were signing guys off the street late in the year and playing those guys over Stackhouse. Like,
Right.
it was Riley was one of them. Ford was one of them. The other
Right.
Bohanna dude who they signed and released. Like, but yeah, maybe who knows? Stackhouse could make a jump second year. It's not unheard of and be a factor. We don't know, but
Yeah.
to me, I'm still really concerned about having a nose tackle.
Yeah, and so that's again what I wonder how much faith they're putting in those guys that we've almost kind of written off or like, meh. I haven't written off Stackhouse, and obviously I've got a little bit of a bias for him, having gotten to interview him at the Shrine Bowl and had some fun with him. But um, I'm not willing to say that a guy is what he is after his rookie season. After your rookie year, there's a lot you're going to be able to learn from. You're going to be able to go back and look at the tape, figure out what you're weak at, focus on it in the offseason. He's 24 years old. He's still, his brain is still growing. I mean, there's a lot of development that can happen there. So I'm not willing to necessarily assume that a guy like that can't be a good player. And so I do wonder how much stock they're putting in or faith they're putting into these guys that we've sort of assumed can't do the job. Ford, he's a big body, right? And he's one of those where it's like, look, in the right system, if you just have to ask him to do a handful of simple things, you don't have to be an all pro. Just, use your almost 340 pounds of weight to get in there and take up two bodies every play. And you do that and let the other guys around you look good, then that's what we need. All right. Well, 340 pounds is at 6'5". You need more than one body to block that. It's a lot of human. So I don't think it's far-fetched to assume that might be their plan and that plan could work for sure. We're going to definitely find out, especially with Gannon saying we're going to do what these guys do well. And we don't know if they were being asked to do things that they didn't do well. That certainly seemed like it might have been the case a couple years ago for like a Kenny Clark, right? Just being asked to do things that he didn't do well or didn't want to do well, or didn't want to do, excuse me. But you got to leave room for some of those things that we can't see. So this is the biggest hit or miss group for me. The rest, seems fairly predictable what you can get from them. But this one, it just doesn't seem like there's going to be a whole lot of like lukewarmness to it. I think they're either going to be good or they're going to be not good. And injuries might have something to say about that too. But time will tell, man. Time will tell. We're only early in the OTAs. We got some more OTA action going on this week. So we'll see some more rotations, some more position groups out there and who's playing with who and who's doing what. We'll see maybe Josh Jacobs is out there and we can get some more answers on what his situation is. But there's a lot to come this week. Of course, as the way things go, there will be a trade for Josh Sweat tomorrow morning, right after our ability to cover it. So, like I said, set your alarm clocks.
Yep.
And I say that jokingly, right? I'm not an insider. I'm not making any predictions. But, yeah, overall, I'm excited about this defense. As much as I gave Gannon a hard time whenever they signed him and picked him up, I am excited to see what he can do with it. We haven't seen guys in a long time, at least I can't remember, maybe Dom Capers, where players want to come play for the defensive coordinator because of who he is and what he's done. Again, Hafley was a lesser known commodity coming out of Boston College. We've all dogged on Joe Barry enough. We don't need to keep doing that. But this is exciting to me that you've got a guy there that good veteran players want to come play for. So yeah, I'm excited about what this defense can bring. There were some questions I saw in here about in the chat, and we'll bring some of these up now that we're kind of at the end of the show here. We had a Vikings fan here in the chat, so I'll give him a little airtime here. Tech Jedi 29. Are you guys sold on your coach Matty L? Are you disappointed they re-signed him? And then he followed up with he seems soft like our head coach, KOC, meaning he's a Vikings fan. Not a fan of either one of our coaches, to be honest. Listen, we talked about this last week. I was super critical of LaFleur after those losses and definitely wanted heads to roll, figuratively speaking. I do think that you were right, Tim, that Hafley did not take nearly enough criticism for his role in those collapses. Because while there is an attitude of, hey, like MLF sets the tone, you're still the head coach of the defense, man. Hafley is the head coach of the defense, and he is part of the reason that they bled out. And that's not okay. Like we can't just sit there and pin it all on LaFleur. And we certainly don't have, visibility to the conversations that happen behind the scenes. But I don't get the sense that Ed Policy is in the business of losing because he doesn't want to fire a guy he's friends with. So I'm willing to be optimistic that MLF can be a leader of men, our showers, and set the right tone this season. And I do think that Gannon brings a different attitude. We're going to find out what it is, but I do think he brings a different attitude to this defense, and I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of address that. I don't know. What do you think, Tim? Do you think LaFleur can change his stripes a little bit?
Yeah, I think he could. I think he needs to. I think the question was, are we sold on Matt LaFleur? I'm not sold on him, but and are we disappointed that they brought him back? I'm not disappointed that they brought him back either. So I know that's, conflicting or whatever, but I'm not entirely sold on him. And I think we've been down this road many, many times and many, many episodes. So I don't think we need to get into it now, but he needs to be a lot better than he was in 2025. He did not have a good year as a head coach. There's many reasons and many factors and many things that played into all that, but he just didn't have a good year as a head coach. He needs to improve, and it needs to happen in 2026. I'm not sold that it's going to happen or that there's going to be, big changes, but at least willing to see him have the opportunity to make those fixes and to make those changes, if that makes sense. But not totally sold on him, to answer that question, but I'm also not. I wasn't too disappointed that they brought him back. I would have understood if they didn't. But, if it's more of this, if 2025 and 2026 are similar, then I'll be on here saying it's time to move on. But if he can make those major changes that need to be made, then I think it's a different conversation and I would be on board with it. But yeah, a lot's gonna be determined by what happens this season.
Totally agree. And Showers threw a direct question out there, so I'll get this one. It said, Miles, you played receiver. I did. Is it not true that Gannon plays his DBs facing forward more and not really running with the receivers? What is it like facing that in-game action as a receiver? I will totally tell you, I would way rather the DB run away from me at the snap than get in my face. There's no doubt about it. At any point in any game, yes, please turn and run, because that works better for me on whatever I'm doing. Even if I'm running a fly up the field, please turn and run with me, because I will manipulate you and your hips one way or another. Versus if you're trying to get in my face, I've immediately got to change what I'm doing to try to figure out how to get where I want to go. So yeah, if Gannon is having these guys face receivers more, that is absolutely better. No doubt about it. I've always kind of felt that way, especially with some of the Joe Barry years where these guys are playing deep, 10 yards off when it's 4th and 2 or whatever. We're on the goal line. That anytime a DB is turning and running, the receiver is definitely happy about it. No question.
Yeah, and I don't think he's playing that every snap. I think it's situationally and stuff like that. They're going to play a lot of cover 4 most likely, but I don't think it's, and maybe R wasn't implying this, but it's not going to be every snap that those DBs are bailing and running off and stuff. And if it is, I mean, fire Gannon will be out there next season. But yeah, to your point, I think you got to vary it and do different things. You can't be the same snap after snap.
No, you have to disguise your coverages. Even if you're going to be in cover 4, get up there in my face like you're playing cover 2 and then bail,
Right.
and that's where the safeties being over the top can help. But yeah, I certainly hope that they are getting a little bit more in their face. Yes, we have seen Gannon, run some of that bail coverage. I don't think that, to your point, I don't think they're going to get as that every play or as much of that, because you have great safeties back there. You don't need that from your corners, unless you're trying to run some disguised coverages and get some playmakers underneath there. But
Right, and
for sure,
it's all about the coverages and disguise. I mean, because disguises, because I think all schemes will run bail coverages at times, depending on what they're calling. I mean, Brian Flores will do it with his DBs, and he's one of the better defensive coordinators. Now he blitzes everybody from every different spot and all the different looks, but like he'll have his cornerbacks bail, but that's part of the call and part of the scheme that they have to run. But yeah, it's just he's got to vary it. He can't be the same thing snap after snap, or teams are going to catch on to it pretty quickly.
Well, and the idea of that, you nailed it. He's going to run blitzes. If you're blitzing the quarterback and you're going to have your corners bailed, because you're basically hedging your bet. You're saying,
Right.
look, you don't have enough time to throw that ball where you want to. So I'm just going to put my corners over the top and prevent you from gashing me really badly with a desperation heave, because you see the blitz coming. You're not going to get away with that, and you're not going to have time to throw the ball you want to throw because I'm blitzing you. So that's the calculus there for him. But yeah, the real strategy is disguise your coverages, and hopefully he does a lot of that. But all right, so we've had some fun there, a little chatter at the end. I am very optimistic about this defense and what Gannon can do with it. I don't think that he is in the situation like he was in Arizona, where he has nothing to work with. I think there's plenty of talent on this defense. It's not going to have all pros at every position. That's a very tough thing for a front office to pull off. Usually cap prohibits that, but yeah, I think that you have what you need in order to win games with this defense. So I'm excited. Maybe next week we'll take a look at the offensive depth chart, probably have something to talk about with the O-line a little bit, but I had some fun tonight talking about this. I'm excited. If they bring in Josh Sweat, boy, let's start booking our trips to the Super Bowl. And that's just my over optimistic side coming out. But if you guys had fun with us like we did, please spike that like button for us. Support the show. Bring some other Packer fans in here and help us find them. Help them find us. And yeah, we welcome you NFC North rivals as well. We'll pick on you a little bit if you want. You Bears fans out there that have no idea what you're talking about because you don't watch football, that's fine too. You're moving to Indiana, so have fun with that. Come on back next week, guys. Hang out with us Monday night, 9:30 p.m. Central Time, streaming live. Jump on over to the YouTube channel right now, Packers Talk Network. Hit that subscribe button for us and tell others to do so as well. It sincerely helps us a great deal, and we would love it if you do it right now. Go right now. Go do it. Go do it right now. And of course, as always, go Pack.